up, my fellow humans? Jordan Sather here, Destroying the Illusion, Saturday, March 28th. It's great to see you again. I know it's been a few days. I did a little bit of social distancing from YouTube there for a minute. And for those of you who have, I guess, followed me or my work for a while, you might have come to sense that I'm kind of like an introverted extrovert. You know, I love talking to people, I love putting myself out there, but at the same time, I definitely value my time and space. So I might go hard for a few weeks, putting a bunch of videos out, content, things like that, and then I'll like go silent for a few days. And that's just the way I recuperate and I, get back into doing this sort of stuff because it's not your it's not your average job, and I'm still learning how to handle it all. But anyway, great to see you guys, and I did a little bit of distancing from the razor there too, huh? This is my quarantine beard. I'll shave it when they let us out. But anyway, I wanted to go live here and just do sort of live chats, kind of like this, from my phone with different topics. And we'll start doing that on this channel. In this one, I wanted to really talk about some helpful suggestions, some tips and tricks, Q-tips, some tips when it comes to understanding QAnon. And it's really for all the new people getting into Q out there, because lately, information's just been spreading like wildfire. The Great Awakening has been spreading like wildfire. You see how, like for instance, Google Trends, you can search how different keywords are trending and how many people have been searching them. And if you search QAnon or the Deep State or the Great Awakening or different keywords like that, geez, it's been exponential. Everybody's getting more likes and engagements and followers, and everybody out there is asking more questions than ever. People who previously didn't ask those sorts of questions are now starting to open their mind and get into these subjects. So I want to have a quick talk here for a few minutes about just things to remember when it comes to, even if you're not new to Q, but a seasoned researcher, just good things to remember. So first of all, we are nearing, we're 2.5 years into the drops. We're on year 3 now. It'll be 3 years later this year. And we are now over 3,900 different posts. 3,900. We're almost up to 4K, guys. That's a lot of posts. And my suggestion to you here, the first one, is to read them all. Read them all from the very first one on whichever of those amalgamator websites you want to use. Go to the first page. And this is even good to do if you're a seasoned researcher. Every so often is just go to the first drop and read them through and refamiliarize yourselves with them. Pick up what you might have not picked up before, right? And study all the concepts involved in these drops. That can and should take you a long time to do. Not just weeks, but months, years. For those of us that have been following since day one, like myself and many out there, we have spent years researching these drops, reading all the ones that come every single day, right? You can take one question that Q might have asked in a drop, one question, and you can spend hours just analyzing that one question and going down all the rabbit holes that connect to it, right? And especially in the drops very early on, back in 2017 and early 2018, when Q was sort of giving everybody the big picture, trying to familiarize them with, what's really going on. And they were basically kind of talking to people that have never even gotten into conspiracy research before. It was very big picture. They were asking questions all across the board. So even in those early drops, you can spend a long time grasping everything that Q is, but also everything that they touch on, all right? So do that. Focus on the drops themselves, because there's so much noise out there. You might often heard this metaphor used, is that you have to separate the signal from the noise, or the signal from the static. There's so much noise and static out there, these days especially. These days, now that there's a lot of people researching Q, and there's a lot of people giving their own little flavor to it, their own little perspective, they're just going down like all sorts of rabbit holes that aren't really connected to Q's drops. There's a lot of noise out there, a lot of static. So you'll get folks that really like numerology, so they're like connecting this drop to this number in a tweet or this number that was said in an article over here, and they're like putting their own little spin on it. And I find that, personally, I don't waste too much time with that sort of stuff because I don't find that it's practical. Sometimes it's fun to go down. Maybe somebody's getting into that numerology stuff, or somebody really likes synchronistic words. They're trying to, put together their own little proof board and connect them all. And I mean, you can go down those rabbit holes. They're fun. But again, practicality. How's that really going to help you understand big picture concepts are a lot more able to be, utilized. So don't waste too much time out there with things that aren't, I guess we should say, directly connected to what's been said in the Q drops, okay? This will help you stay focused, stay on task, but also not get distracted or maybe confused. Because again, a lot of people's personal spin that they put on the drops or the topics or the proofs, etc., I don't find them too logical, especially these days, right? A lot of stuff just posted on Twitter and Instagram, and people get that confused and think it comes from Q's drops or it is something Q referenced, when really it's not. It's just this person's interpretation with whatever is going on in their head, right? So stay focused, stay on the drops. Second one here, and this gets us into that idea of being careful who you follow. Be very careful. Again, a lot of noise out there trying to distract you, and a lot of them on the internet are doing it sort of purposefully. So we know that the mainstream media sucks, okay? We know that they're just either blithering idiots that work for mainstream media outlets, or they are knowingly disinforming, and they're either paid or blackmailed or whatever the case to do so. Mainstream media sucks. Now we get into the layer under that, the alternative media, all right? The alternative, or the even the truth communities or conspiracy communities, whatever the case. Under the mainstream media, in that alternative world, it gets really controlled. And it can get even more confusing than the mainstream media, because the mainstream media is obvious shillery, but you get in the alt media, and the psyops become ever more pronounced. So in the alternative media, you could have Twitter personalities with blue check marks, or people with YouTube channels. There's radio shows, from political to paranormal to just different people with podcasts and conferences out there and streaming services. Holy shit, there's so much special interests in the alternative media world. You might not even have a clue. And if you don't have a clue, just understand that, okay? You really need to understand that point of not getting emotionally attached to whatever personality or talking head or pundit is out there, okay? Because controlled opposition is everywhere. And again, whatever their motive, whatever the reasoning behind it is, facto is that there's a lot of controlled opposition out there. And there's also a lot of accounts, especially on Twitter and YouTube, that have very large bot followings. So they have a huge, maybe one of their posts has a lot of artificial likes, and it's inflated with all these likes that are just from bot accounts. So it makes it look more popular than it really is. And then people will fall for that logical fallacy, the appeal to majority thought, and then believe it to be true and share it around, even though it's a fake rumor. So there's a lot of artificial inflation, a lot of bot accounts on Twitter, on YouTube as well. And so just be careful who you follow. And I really like a Bruce Lee quote. He says, "Absorb what's useful, reject what's useless, and add what's uniquely your own." And do that. Don't shy away from somebody just because they're a shill. I still watch some programs and read some articles from people who I know are controlled opposition. They're lying about something out there, but they might have useful information about something else, about a different topic. And you can use that. But then just don't, they're fools about something else. Don't worry with that. But again, there's a lot of people out there who are just, ignorant or knowingly misinforming. So you don't want to become emotionally attached to any particular group or individual because they all have their own lean, their own perspective, their own angle, and they're all human, right? You're just as capable of a researcher. You have all the information at your fingertips with a phone or a laptop connected to the internet. You could become just as damn good of a researcher and figure out pretty close to what's actually going on, just as good as anybody else out there, even the popular people, or the people who set themselves up to be the authorities of truth or the gatekeepers. Okay? So be careful who you follow. And then this also sort of goes into my next point, in that you want to be careful who you follow out there in Twitter land, internet world, but you also want to be careful viewing Q themselves as an arbiter of truth. Be very careful in doing that as well. And there's many reasons why you don't want to do that, okay? Now, I will preface this by saying I often do look to Q for clarity on certain situations, and something might be going on, and I wait for them to post to talk more about it. So I do look to them as having insider intelligence, information, and capability, but at the same time, again, it's all just human. We're all humans here. And then there's the idea of, well, in Q's drops, there is some disinformation scattered throughout there now and again for particular strategic reasons. And you also have to remember, when it comes to Q's drops, they have to be cryptic to go around national security. There's a lot of things that Q hasn't even touched on yet. That's a huge thing to understand right there, is that for the last 2.5 years, Q has been very focused on certain subjects. They've gone pretty big picture. They've touched on subjects that are out there a little bit, but they have been pretty focused. And there's still a lot of stuff when it comes to truth seeking, big picture, that they still have not touched on. So yeah, you don't want to look to them as an arbiter of truth, because if you do that, and I think the people on Q team, if they heard me right now, they would even agree with me, is that they don't want to have to tell you what to think. They are here posting these drops to try to teach you how to think, try to help you learn on your own so you can see what's going on, so you can have that sort of observing mentality, so you can think like they think, right? Q is posting so you can learn how to decode, learn how to see symbols, learn how to think beyond the black and white into that shade of gray. I mean, these are military intelligence dudes who think in a military intelligence way, and that's not the way that the average Joe out there in America thinks. So they're teaching you how to see things in a different perspective. If you have to just sit there and wait for them to tell you what to think, then that's literally going against what they even put in their own drops. The premise of them is to get you to be a free thinker so you can learn how to research and educate yourself and know what to observe and how to observe it, know how to think. So, yeah, Q is like an assister, a laser pointer, as they've sort of mentioned in their drops. They're just there to guide. They're there to guide. They're not there to be the hand holder for the rest of our waking up experiences. Because what's going to happen when that hand holder is gone? Speaking of emotional attachments, don't get an emotional attachment to Q. You see what happens when Q doesn't post for a few weeks. People start going crazy, and they're like, and it starts getting weird out there. Because a lot of us still have that learning curve in order to feel self-sufficient in our own thought process, feel like sovereign, comfortable in our own minds and bodies. So look to Q as being the group that's just giving us the assist, giving us the alley-oop, and it's up to us to dunk that ball and to come to our own conclusions, Just look to them as a little help every so often. And think of that. Think of what's going to happen when Q goes away. What happens then? Ugh. You might not want to think about that. Q's fun. I really like everything Q's been doing for the last couple of years, but it's not going to happen forever. So just things to think about. And then last thing to touch on here is that, and I've sort of touched on it already, is that, again, there's a lot of stuff that Q hasn't touched on yet. And there's a lot of subjects. It just goes a lot deeper than Q has even touched on. Or a lot weirder, if you want to say that. So where could we go in the conversation here? I mean, that might sound scary. You're like, holy shit, I'm like, my mind's freaking blown just reading a few of these drops from Q. You're telling me there's more stuff out there? Yeah, there's a lot more stuff out there in terms of hidden science and hidden history and the stuff that we're just not told. Right? There's a lot, of course, that Q has not touched on because they just, again, they can't for a variety of reasons, and they're very focused right now. There's objectives, there's jobs to get done, and as things will open up in the future, they'll be able to touch on a lot more things, or maybe we'll just be so damn good of researchers on our own and we'll have such a good field of independent journalists out there that, you know, we can pick ourselves up at that point. But it might sound scary that there's more out there than just Q, and it goes deeper, but to me, it's exciting. It's very exciting because then there's all this stuff out there that we have yet to learn. Isn't that awesome? We still have stuff out there yet to learn, and it's just fantastic times ahead once we do begin to learn all of that information on our own and begin to build up sort of a new paradigm, these new systems with Q's help, but then this new media, this new education, this new, new energy, all sorts of stuff is going to come out, and it's going to be us that does that. So anyway, that's all I have for you here in this one, guys. Lot of trolls I see in the comments, but that'll happen when I go live here. I'll get some more mods on these chats very soon. And more videos coming, guys. More videos coming on this channel this weekend. And then I'm working on some content for my other brand, too, for Conscious Strength. A lot of good stuff be coming through that, too. Good, free information. Truth and transparency is key. So thanks for hanging out with me here, everybody. We'll do more of these phone chats, too, where it's not like jumping around from a bunch of different subjects out there, where it's very focused, good 10 to 20 minutes of one subject, and then do more of these. Other videos coming too. So anyway, thanks guys. Take care. See you soon.